Hey everybody, what's happening? Brent Axe here from syracuse.com, and we are live. We are live following the Merrick Dolezaj show at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. What a performance for Merrick tonight as the Orange take down Wake Forest 73-64. It is their first ever ACC tournament win, their fourth try doing that. The Orange were 0-3 in the ACC tournament prior to tonight's win. Certainly Merrick Dolezaj was huge tonight, but all five Syracuse players that played significant minutes in this game in double figures, a true balanced effort. It was beyond the big three, and it was really the big two of not only Merrick Dolezaj, Tyus Battle certainly big, Pascal Chukwu with some huge plays in the second half. The Orange shoot very well in this game overall. They were at the rim throughout the entire second half. I think they finished right around 70% shooting in the second half. Syracuse shoots, let's see here, 54% overall, 23 of 42 from the field for the Orange. What a performance tonight at the Barclays to take down Wake Forest, and now a showdown with North Carolina tomorrow night. Was tonight enough to get the Orange in the NCAA tournament? That is the question. Probably not on its own, but if the Orange can combine that with a win over North Carolina tomorrow night, I think Selection Sunday is going to be a lot less stressful for Syracuse fans for sure. So thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Please like and share this post if you're watching us now live on Facebook. Appreciate that. I'll hop in the comments with you guys there and answer some of these questions here momentarily. But you guys comment to your heart's content over there and keep the conversation flowing. So you got to start with Merrick Dolezaj. What a performance from him. Look, he was open. He was open all night inside. Wake Forest at times didn't even bother to guard the guy. So you know what? He took advantage of it. And how about Merrick Dolezaj throwing down those dunks? He made some great passes. He got after the boards. Dolezaj tonight, 6 of 7 from the field. About 4 of those plays were dunks. He was 8 of 10 from the free throw line as well, really getting it after it at the free throw line, really getting it after it from the field and just playing his best game by far, clearly, in a Syracuse uniform. I mean, what a performance for this kid. His previous career high, I think, was 11 points. He shatters that tonight. And, you know, raise your hand if you thought Syracuse would win this game, and the big reason that they would win, their leading scorer, would be Merrick Dolezaj. Put your hand down, sir, because you're lying. I mean, that's what Syracuse needed. They needed somebody to step up to complement the big three. So it wasn't just Merrick Dolezaj tonight, Pascal Chukwu as well. You know, O'Shea Brissett really struggled shooting the ball tonight, but he did end up with 10 points and 9 rebounds. So that got all 5 Syracuse players on the floor in double figures. So Syracuse really picked a good time this late in the game to get a balanced effort. The ball movement was much better tonight. Syracuse with 13 assists on the night. They won the rebounding battle. Didn't really have to hit from three-point range tonight. They did have some, just kind of glancing at the stats here while we're yakking about it. So Syracuse was 4 of 17 from the three-point line tonight, pardon me. Wake was 6 of 29, and Wake's a pretty good three-point shooting team. They had hit a lot of threes against Syracuse this year. Not tonight, but Syracuse didn't need it because Syracuse was gorgeous inside the paint. So it wasn't just Merrick Dolezaj, as we said. Pascal Chukwu, you know, got some great passes inside. He ends up with 14 points and 9 rebounds on the night, including there was one play towards the end there where Merrick Dolezaj, Wake, was pressuring Syracuse. He runs up the floor like a point guard, dishes up a beautiful lob pass to Pascal Chukwu, who throws it down. You know, Tyus Battle doing what Tyus Battle needs to do, got into foul trouble and ended up fouling out of this game, but he ends up with 18 points on the night. Frank Howard tonight had 11 points and 5 assists, and some of those dishes that he made were beautiful. I mean, some of the best passes of the year. He's throwing no-look passes out there. There was one time he threw a no-look pass, and Pascal Chukwu was like, whoa, where'd that come from? He wasn't even expecting it, but just a good, balanced effort. Now, there was a couple of burps in this game for Syracuse. There was an 11-0 run late by Wake to make this a game. You know, there was a couple of runs there where Syracuse just kind of let Wake Forest get back in it. You go to the first half, Syracuse at one point was up 25-9, and then Wake goes on, I think it was an 18-6 run after that, and at least made it a little closer at halftime than it looked like it was going to be, considering how well Syracuse was playing. So there were a couple of burps there. There were a couple of moments where Wake just went on these spurts and these runs, and that's something to keep in mind for tomorrow night, because North Carolina is certainly going to come in and run Syracuse up and down the floor. We saw how the game was at the Carrier Dome, just 10 days ago or so, in what was a 78-74 win by North Carolina. So some of those defensive lapses can't happen tomorrow. And a lot of what happened tonight has to carry over in terms of the balanced effort, in terms of getting a fourth and a fifth guy to score. Certainly O'Shea Brissett has to play better tomorrow. Syracuse will play it says 9 o'clock, but usually these tournament games, it probably won't be till closer to 9:30 tomorrow night. And it's big, because if Syracuse beats North Carolina tomorrow, I think you can feel pretty good about Selection Sunday. I mean, you never can write these things in pen with the selection committee. If Syracuse beats Carolina and then Miami, I don't think there's any doubt that they're in at that point, because then they've got 5 quadrant 1 wins and have really, they've got 4 ranked wins at that point. They've really done what they needed to. If you include the ACC tournament, which there's an argument about whether or not they should do that or not, considering, you're supposed to be judged on a 4-month resume, not just, 3 or 4 days in a tournament, but it does count, and they are the team sitting square on the bubble there. So if they could pull that off, that run off, then they're in undoubtedly. If it's just North Carolina tonight, I think that's good enough. Now, there's at-large bids out there that teams can steal, and, conference tournament week can be weird. But this is big time for Syracuse. If they can beat a ranked team, a quadrant 1 win, the name brand that North Carolina brings to the table, I don't think there's, look, it's the selection committee, and Syracuse has certainly seen its fair share of adventures with the selection committee. So, again, I'm not putting anything in stone, but I think you'll feel really good. If you win tomorrow night, then lose to Miami, and that's it. I think you got to feel good about that if you're Syracuse. But one game at a time, as they say, right? So Wake tonight, we mentioned Merrick and Tyus and Pascal, O'Shea, Frank Howard. Bryant Crawford at 22 points for Wake tonight. He was really their only offensive threat. He was the guy that kind of got those runs going for Wake Forest and got back into this thing. Yeah, I saw some comments out of the corner of my eye here. I'm going to go in the comments a little bit more here in a moment. Yeah, the officiating was abysmal in this game. Now, Syracuse did get to the free throw line 29 times tonight, but some of the calls, some of the rough play that, Wake Forest did out there, some of the missed calls, just, the officiating wasn't the best tonight. Thankfully, Syracuse had a comfortable enough lead throughout most of the game that it didn't matter, but certainly I did notice that as well, so had to put that in there. But again, even with the, the officiating being as questionable as it was, Syracuse got to the free throw line 29 times. They go 23 of 29, 80% from the free throw line. I mentioned how well Syracuse shot the ball because they got so many shots. Merrick Dolzaj, Pascal Chukwu inside, even Tyus Battle and Frank Howard getting inside at times. Always important that Syracuse wins the rebounding battle, and they did that. So just a good, tough overall effort here. So now we start to shift our focus quickly to tomorrow night. And I saw Foul Breeze mention this in the comments, and it's the first thing that comes to mind, okay? In the first North Carolina matchup at the Carrier Dome, Theo Pinson had himself a day. 23.7 assists. North Carolina assisted on 25 of 28 baskets in that game. They're a crisp team. They move the ball well. They're going to want to push the pace, which, again, is something I think Syracuse generally wants to do. I don't think they enjoy playing these games. They're kind of slinging through the mud. Tonight had a pretty good pace to it. It wasn't like the Clemson game on Sunday, a 55-52 grinded out type of game. So that's the first thing that comes to mind right there. North Carolina lost to Duke to come into this tournament. North Carolina, you're never quite sure about motivation for these teams. Certainly they want to win as many games as they can and want to have a good showing, and certainly want to run into Duke again in the ACC tournament. But Syracuse is the team more than anybody that needs to have another win, have a good showing, and get a brand name win here. And there's going to be a lot of Syracuse fans there tomorrow night, as there was tonight in Brooklyn, but Carolina fans travel. So either way, it's going to be an electric atmosphere. I think there'll be more Syracuse fans there ultimately because they've won, they build momentum. Everybody in the New York area will go, or it's a short drive for a lot of Syracuse fans to get there if they want to check it out and kind of cheer this team on as they try and clinch an NCAA tournament bid. There's going to be some Carolina fans there tomorrow night. There's certainly were not a lot of Wake Forest fans in the building on a Tuesday night, but tomorrow the intensity will pick up on both sides for sure. All right, so The question is now, is North Carolina enough? Do you guys think if Syracuse wins this game tomorrow night that they are in? Because the selection committee is one that is very hard to predict. You just never quite know which direction they're going to go, but I think it's enough. I do. I think if they beat Carolina, that's 4 quadrant one wins. It's almost 5 because Buffalo's right on the cut line of being a quadrant one win, and I think that's enough to seal the deal for the Orange. I think that would prove they deserve to play in the tournament. Now, let's keep in mind, guys, by the tournament, that could be Dayton. That could be the play-in game. Because if you're one of the last 4 in, which Syracuse might be, even with a win over Carolina, and if that's where the end of the road is, if they beat Miami, they're undoubtedly in. But if you beat North Carolina and that's the end of the road here at the ACC tournament, then you could be in Dayton. And to that I say Dayton is better than the NIT. I've never been a big fan of the play-in game, but I have a feeling if Syracuse makes it to the play-in game, I'll have a whole new appreciation of the fine town of Dayton, Ohio, and the First 4, as they call it, in the NCAA tournament. All right, let's hit the comments. Let's see what you guys are saying. Good stuff here for you. Chris saying Carolina's enough in his opinion. A couple other people saying that Carolina would be enough for the Orange to get in. Michael noting that Joe Lenardi had us as 98% chance of being in just by beating Wake Forest. This could be enough. I don't want to, I wouldn't bet money on it that beating Wake and losing to Carolina is enough. It might be. The bracketologists seem to be kind of putting Syracuse right on the cut line there. I saw a stat that the BPI, which is ESPN's big measurement metric, with a win tonight gave Syracuse an 84% chance of getting in the tournament. So that could be enough. But beating North Carolina, that to me, that's insurance. That you can't keep Syracuse out after that, especially given some of the teams around them on the bubble. And, by all measures, I think that would be enough. Valerie agreeing with me, I'll take Dayton over the NIT and anytime. Anytime. I will never buy this theory of, the NIT being good for anything. And we saw that last year. Syracuse was a number 1 seed in the NIT and pretty much the whole time, and I don't blame them for this. Didn't want to be there and lost to Ole Miss at the Dome last year. They put on a pretty furious rally to try and come back in that game, but the NIT does nothing for these guys. You want to be in the tournament. You want to be able to say you earned a tournament bid, even if it is Dayton, even if it is the first 4. I agree with that. Greg's got money on Syracuse getting in, so let's hope for entertainment purposes only, right, Greg, that the Orange come through for you. Tim saying, why are 2 of the play-in teams 11 seeds, not all 16 seeds? Yeah, that's for teams like Syracuse and, let's say, for argument's sake, Marquette or Oklahoma, or how about this? If the committee has any sense of, a nice little entertaining matchup for television, who wouldn't want to see Syracuse play Washington in a play-in game in Dayton, Ohio? Now, that's something I'd like to see. It is interesting, Tim, though, as you know how they mix that up, that it's, a mix of a 16 seed, and sometimes these are automatic bids, which I think is bogus. You win your conference tournament, you get an automatic bid. You shouldn't go to Dayton to have to win your way in. But they take some of the lower-rated 16 seeds and mix it up with some 11 seeds that are trying to fight their way into the tournament. So it is interesting how they do that, and a good point to bring up there. Let's see. Antonio saying that was the ESPN BPI that had Houston at 98%. Okay, good clarification there. Not Lenardi. That's a high rate there. But, the thing with the BPI is, they can't measure what human beings do in a room and what the committee will decide. But, certainly their odds go up the more they win. They beat Carolina tonight. I think you're feeling pretty good, right? Yeah, Michael makes a good point here. So as we speak, it's 9:40 Eastern time. So if you're watching on the replay later, which we put this up on YouTube when it's finished. So if you're watching this, you may know the result of this. But BYU is playing Gonzaga tonight in the West Coast Conference Tournament. Root for Gonzaga, because that means they get the conference tournament automatic bid. If BYU beats Gonzaga, then Gonzaga's getting an at-large bid. There's no question about that. That takes an at-large bid away, not necessarily from Syracuse. It just takes an at-large bid off the board. The more at-large bids that are out there, the better for Syracuse. So root for chalk. Root for the teams that are supposed to win their conference tournaments to do it. Root against BYU in that game. Charles says, how come is Louisville higher in most projections than Syracuse? I think it's because they have a better conference record at 9-9, and I'd have to compare the quadrant one wins. I think it's pretty even at that point. And Syracuse beat Louisville head-to-head. Syracuse's strength of schedule is pretty good, so I think a lot of that is just going on conference record at this point. But they're pretty close. They're both, square on the bubble at this point. Louisville's going to need a good run in the tournament themselves, I think, to convince the committee to put them in. Let's see what we else got here in the comments. Appreciate you guys hanging with us here on a Tuesday night. We'll be right back here on Wednesday night, by the way, even late night after Syracuse and North Carolina. Anthony says, your thoughts on our, I think you mean resume there. I think their resume is good enough to be in the conversation. They've got 3 quadrant one wins, almost a fourth. Their strength of schedule is near top 10 in the country. Their RPI is good. Their BPI is good. Their Ken Pom rating is good. Syracuse doesn't have a lot of bad losses. Georgia Tech and Wake are probably their 2 worst losses, and those are conference play. You're going to lose a couple in conference play that way. Syracuse was much better on the road this year than they were. What killed them last year was road play, and they just didn't have any significant wins, particularly in non-conference play. They picked up some bad losses along the way. I think their resume is solid. North Carolina, I think, just would be the cherry on top of the sundae that would say, all right, we've got to slide Syracuse in the in category, and the conversation about other teams would be more intense about being on the bubble and getting in. I think the resume is good enough to be in the conversation and to be someone that is worthy of – I think they've proven that they deserve to play in the tournament. I think they at least could, win a game or 2 in the tournament, if that includes the playing game or not. I think Syracuse is a team, particularly if, they continue this balanced play that's going on right now, that could give some teams trouble. That zone defense always gives people trouble. Beating North Carolina, though, is the ultimate validation of you got Carolina, Clemson, Miami, Louisville. 4 good enough wins to say, all right, we at least belong here. We at least belong in this thing, even if it's the playing game. And that's fair. I think the playing game, if it is Carolina and that's it, that's what their resume is. That's what they earned, and that's all you can ask for is a shot, right? Nick says, better hope Notre Dame loses and all the other bubble teams. That would certainly help. Notre Dame's interesting, though, because I wonder how the committee's going to judge them with Bonzie Colson, without Bonzie Colson, the injuries, and how that's going to balance out. Their strength of schedule and some of their wins don't add up. Greg adding that Notre Dame should be out unless they win 2 to 3 more, hoping Virginia Tech stomps Notre Dame. It's too bad for Notre Dame because injuries just submarine their season. But if they get in, they could be dangerous because they got Colson back. They've got Matt Farrell back. And, if they get an opportunity, that's a team that could be – I'll tell you what, if they get in, that's a sleeper Sweet 16 team right there. But we'll see how it goes here and if they even get in. Chris says we need more minutes from our bench. Chris, they don't have a bench. Their bench is Matthew Moyer and Barama Sidibe. That's it. They don't have a bench. They have 7 guys. 5 went for double figures tonight. So I don't know what bench you're talking about. They don't have one at this point. Beth just saying, great game, played their hearts out. And Beth, that's what they've done all year. That's what this team does. That's the mark of this team is they, you're going to get an intense, hard-fought effort from Syracuse. And what that equaled tonight was better ball movement with 13 assists. What that equaled was some good defense, even though Wake had a couple of runs in this game. And what that equaled tonight was, was a balanced play. 5 guys in double figures. So effort finally, equaled and finally, made and equaled. I'm trying to say an equal effort from all 5 guys. Couldn't spit that out there. Let's see. Aaron says, let's just win out, not worry about it. It's going to be a tough run with no bench, as they said, and only 5-6 guys in the rotation. Chris says, well, they need more minutes from those 2. Why? Barama can't jump. Barama is very limited with his knee situation, and Matthew Moyer doesn't do anything when he's out there. Matthew Moyer's struggling right now. Matthew Moyer's trying to kind of find his way. I feel bad because he's just been on this real bad string here in the last 7-8 games, and he doesn't do anything when he's out there. He came out tonight, got a foul the first 30 seconds he was in the game. So you don't play guys just to play guys, Chris. You got to play guys that are contributing. And at least with Barama, you could say it's an injury situation, and you got to be careful how you handle that. But Moyer is not, earning the minutes. He's not doing anything when he's out there. When you've got 5 guys in double figures, which is rare for Syracuse, frankly, it's usually 3 from the big 3 of O'Shea, Frank, and Tyus. When you got 5 guys in double figures tonight, you don't need the bench guys. you want to play guys just to play guys. I don't get this argument, I think I'm kind of done answering that because that's just not what this team is. All right, Jason says if UNC blows them out, are they still in? Last game against them, last game was close, but the last game was at home. That's a fair point to bring up, Jason. I don't know. I don't think they're – boy, that's a great question because I don't think the committee necessarily looks at that in conference tournament play. I mean, if North Carolina wins by 30 points tomorrow, let's just say, I don't think that'll be the case because Syracuse typically plays close games. Will they factor that in? Because that's one game out of how many? 33 that you would have played. But it's a perception thing. It's fresh in your mind. That's the last game that Syracuse played. I don't think that will make a difference. I think if Syracuse loses, it's just going to be, it's going to be a nervous selection Sunday. They still have a shot to get in. Well, let's look at another scenario. Let's say Syracuse loses by the same score they lost to at the Dome recently, 78-74. Does that show the committee enough that you can compete with a team like that? At this point, you just need wins. You just need wins flat out. So I don't think it'll make a difference. But, again, trying to decide what the committee does can be a fruitless process sometimes, right? Mike says, tonight you saw a different team, almost as if they were on a mission. They now know what they're playing for. It will not be over. They do not play hard every minute, and you can see that tonight. Tonight that equaled a balanced effort. Tonight that equaled things that should when you're playing hard. Even guys that were struggling on the offensive end, like O'Shea Brissett, got 9 rebounds in this game. So that effort's always been there, but tonight it produced better results in terms of everybody that played kind of chipping in short of those 2 bench guys that don't get in and don't need to get in at this point if your starting 5 is playing as well as they were. All right, so what do you say we meet again here tomorrow night? Syracuse, North Carolina. It's a big one. The Orange beat the Tar Heels. They are in, at least in my mind. We'll see what the committee says about that one. But that would be a huge, huge win for Syracuse, no question about it, and I think would seal the deal. I think that's good enough to get them in the NCAA tournament. So looking forward to it. ACC tournament play. The Orange get their first ACC tournament win. By the way, this is the 37th year that Jim Boeheim has had 20 wins as a head coach, 37 out of 42. Not bad there for Jim Boeheim. Thanks for hanging with us tonight. Look for all of our coverage on syracuse.com tonight and tomorrow morning. My recap will be up first thing in the morning, and we will chat with you after the game tomorrow night. Give me a late one, but I think we'll be here because Syracuse's NCAA tournament fate will certainly be decided. So look for us after the game tomorrow night, hopefully. If it's not too late, we'll see about that, but I think we'll be here. You guys will be up, right? You're going to stay up with me, watch the game. So I think more than likely we'll be here tomorrow night doing the Facebook Live thing once again. But we appreciate you hanging out tonight. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night, and we'll see how the Orange do in Game 2 of their ACC tournament play in 2018 tomorrow. Thanks to our friends at the Bill Rapp Superstore for joining us and sponsoring our Facebook Live and our Syracuse Sports Podcast as well. Have a great rest of your night, everybody. The Orange beat Wake Forest tonight, 74-63, and the Tar Heels are next.